What happened?
Well, hello, audience. Guess whose birthday it is today? This one.
Yeah,
It's Big Willie's birthday.
yeah, it is. Yeah, 48, which is it's a real boring number. It's divisible by so much stuff. 47 was a prime number. I love that one. That was great. Just 47 and 1.
With your samurai swords, your katanas, your miniatures, and that hip glasses and cool T-shirt, I wouldn't have thought you were a day over 22. But
Me neither. Most of the time, I try not to feel that way either, except for when I wake up or go to bed, and
exactly.
most of the rest of the day.
Putting on your shoes, good. So
Oh, geez. I guess
funny
I'm
story.
growing hair out of that spot now.
Exactly, just sprouting forth. I have a toddler. She's 2.5, and she's been hanging out with a lot of older folks. My parents are older than I, but now she'll like get up off the ground and she'll go like every time she gets up. Look, I don't think you have to do that yet. But hey, what are we doing today? What are we taking on?
Well, I think people can probably pick up the clues from the t-shirts and the hats and like the what we take on thing. But Conquest, yes, we're doing Conquest.
Oh, a whole lot of Conquest. I knew the
Whole lot
shirt
of
would come in handy.
So what are you going to be painting today?
All sorts of good stuff. This is a very timely episode for me because I've got a lot of gray and unpainted. I got these like little primed fellers here. So yeah, I have a lot of goodies. I got some trolls that I'm gonna try to gang paint a lot of these things. So these troll guys, I did prime them up, and I'm gonna do some slappy choppy with some white over top to get some definition in them. And then I'm going to prime some Bow Chosen, which I have a box somewhere. These guys here, these Nord's archers. So these are kind of like the Highland guys, right? You're kind of Viking style fellers and ladies, I guess.
And for those of you who do play or are interested in playing, those are scary archers. We don't like those archers unless you're playing Nords, and then you like those archers. They're great.
They hit pretty hard. So I got all sorts of stuff to paint up. But yeah, these are House Carls or brutally fellers with shields. So yeah, I'm gonna try to get some prime on the Bow Chosen, slap chop my trolls, and then see how many of these guys I can do. Get their capes and shields all done, so they look kind of cool. And we hopefully will clash Friday, or I'll clash with somebody on Friday. What about you, Will?
Well, I am working on a batch of Leonine Avatara with the Prideborn Avatar is their HQ. I was working on them a little while back.
Let's look at it.
The Avatar are like the Spire's leadership, the rulers. They get to create there's these bodies that they project into and take on the battlefield because they wouldn't endanger themselves. That's for the lower classes.
Those are very cool, and they kind of have like an Egyptian flair to them a little bit. Am I making them up?
They feel like they definitely have like an African look to them, I think.
Okay.
These ones are specifically like cats of prey as their lower bodies, but they have centaur versions too, which are more like big armored crab horses, sort of. But they're closer to horses than these.
Okay. Egypt's North Africa.
Yeah, it is true. That is part of Africa. And I don't know enough about Egyptian cavalry to be able to say conclusively. But they definitely have like an African feel. I love the look of these guys. I've been excited about painting them forever. Every time I can, I sneak some brushes onto them. But because it's my birthday, I was also lucky enough to get a founder's exclusive of the St. George and the Dragon.
Oh, wow.
And I'm very excited to paint this guy up. So we'll do an unboxing.
What? Oh my gosh. We'll have to solo you out for when we do that. Yeah. We do gotta give one out to Rick. He will not be here today. He was feeling a little under the weather, but he said the show must go on. So here we are.
Yes, indeed. And that's another Discworld shout out. There's a good book about the show must go on. It's about opera.
Okay.
Trying to help our viewers also be literate.
Exactly. Pick up a book once in a while.
Yeah, it's good for you. Yeah, not pictured besides all the nonsense in the background is all the books on the wall. There's a lot.
Do you want to
So,
get after? Oh, go ahead.
So you're doing priming. Do you have like a color scheme in mind for those guys?
Yeah. So interesting enough, I did kind of the blue scheme for Nords. I mean, they've got a lot of blue. Like the trolls are kind of these. Let's put some light over here. These are kind of some blue, but also some green. So tunic wise, and I'm gonna do green with leather, kind of your traditional Northman stuff, and some brown. And then blue for the monstery guys, so the trolls will be more monstery. So yeah, I mean, kind of a greenish, but then adding a little bit of blue highlights somewhere just to tie it all together.
A blue highlight. Have you played with turquoise much?
Just yeah. Actually, you turned me on to our exclusive Citadel paint sponsor for the episode here. This is the Temple Guard blue, and this is an airbrush paint that I found is actually you turned me on to it. And it goes on very turquoisey and pretty amazing.
And I've got like two complete different bands of turquoise I'm going to be using later. That's part of the color scheme I've been working on for these ones. I think you can kind of pick it out, maybe.
Yeah.
The one with the black base on the fur.
Ooh, that looks nice.
But I used a turquoise glaze to give it a sheen. And then I've been trying to pick it out to make some fur highlights on that. So I'll be doing a bit of that later too.
Nice. The boots with the fur.
Yes. All four of the boots with the fur. You know what I'm talking about, or probably don't. So I want to open this thing. I'm excited. It's a birthday present.
All right, let's do it. Let's solo you out here so we can get a close-up look at it.
All right. So
there he is, the birthday boy. Who got you this fantastic present? You bought it yourself? You bought it for yourself?
No. My wife and kids got it for me.
Oh, that's great. Even better. Were you dropping subtle hints like, here's the link. This is where you buy it. This is the exact model.
Maybe.
Just subtle hints.
Maybe. You know? Yeah. This is the precise thing that I'd really like, please. Got some thick foam in here. We've got the certificate of authenticity.
Oh, put it back in. I gotta frame that.
750 of these.
Oh wow, that's I didn't know that was that unique. No wonder it has a decent ticket price, I believe. So no wonder.
Yeah, and one I know they do with these too. Like the first, I think it's 500. Those go to stores, and the rest are prize support. So if you get above 500, you earned that.
That's
or
great.
You lucked out. Oh, it's coming in a lot of pieces, and we got a lot of resin. Here's the lance. I think I got a picture of
your Lancelot
of Saint George and the dragon somewhere. And we got lots of bits. Thank you. Here's the studio painted version of it.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
I know it's like a big diorama base, but the actual the guy on the horse can be used in your army. So
but it comes with a full diorama, like dragony bits.
Yeah, the whole shebang. So
That's a technical term. Bit.
Yes. We got the character there, cool cape, and I think there's 2 heads in there. Oh, there's some lore bits there too. If anybody's into the 100 Kingdoms, this head looks like it belongs in one of the Ashen Dawn, which is pretty sweet. The Ashen Dawn are like the super units from the 100 Kingdoms. Pull that one out.
For y'all that don't know, Will is a Conquest Vanguard. How long have you been Vanguarding for him, and what's that entail?
It's been a couple of years now, I think. I've lost track. I've been doing this for a while. It's just kind of a labor of love. A Vanguard is somebody like a local champion, somebody who's like you introduce people to the game as much as you can. And I was going to do that anyways, but they give me free stuff, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anybody who has put together 100 Kingdoms before would probably recognize this head. And I wasn't expecting this. This is awesome. This looks very much like one of the guys from the Ashen Dawn, which is our super units. That's in fact the precise head I used on like the captain of that unit. So that's cool. And then we've got this big stonking horsey. That's a big old horsey. Lots of fun details to get into. Ooh. That's great. We got dragon head and dragon body parts and a slab of resin.
Oh wow, that's hefty.
That's big.
That's half a bottle of resin right there. Nah, a quarter bottle. Yeah, that's awesome.
And the base, so that goes in there. And if you can pop that out, and I think I got a stand handy. So you got like a cavalry stand. Just pop that guy in there, and you can use them in the game.
That's great.
And then that's most of the box. There's instructions, it looks like. And do they have a card? Oh, it's just a conquest, like download the app kind of card, not a character card. But you'll have character cards. That's not a big deal. Oh man, I'm excited. I have a lot of resin to clean. A lot to clean.
Yeah, and I got my resin bath area. So yeah, I usually take a toothbrush, and then some dish soap, Dawn dish soap or whatever you're using, and warm water and scrub it up, get that release, mold release off of it.
Yeah, if anybody is not familiar with painting resin, that's a big deal. The chemical that they use to get it out of the mold, it does not like primer, and you'll be coating it with primer a lot unless you go through that kind of process after you like clean it off. And don't use a file.
Yeah, resin dust is nasty, caustic stuff. So, but yeah, definitely wear a little mask or whatever if you are working with it and it gets dusty or anything like that, or try to just X-Acto blade it off. But yeah, cleaning that up, scrubbing it down, and then sometimes I would have to score it with like an X-Acto knife, almost like a little crisscross, where the contact points would be, because it's so smooth that even crazy glue, or whatever you're using, Gorilla Glue, crazy glue. Can't use plastic cement on it. You have to use some sort of crazy glue.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been, and I've found a lot of conquest models. If anybody's out there making them, I find super glue to be a little bit easier to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the contact points are, they're just not quite flush enough for the acetylate, like the melty glue, the plastic glue, to do its magic and form that seal. And so the super glue fills it up and makes that a lot better. So that's what I've discovered over my many years of being a Vanguard and putting these guys together. That's what I've been recommending to everybody.
Nice. Yeah. Pro tip on that. And I found that the not sponsored, but the Gorilla Glue super glue works pretty good.
Yes.
For that, and it for some reason doesn't like get my hands as quickly as some of the other ones.
Yeah. Although you got to be careful. I got a bottle of it not too long ago, one of these bottles, and I don't think like the mixture mixed in the bottle, because it just comes out, it's goo, and then it's still goo, and nothing happened. So watch out.
Yeah. Watch out, Gorilla Glue.
So watch out for that.
Yeah. Find it at your local hobby store if they have.
So what I'm going to try to do with the color scheme on these guys, I told you about the turquoise.
Yeah.
I'm doing a mix of like a light blue and a purple for the clothy bits.
Yeah, that looks wonderful.
And for any of the armor bits, because it's to be similar with the rest of the Spire stuff that I've done.
Yeah.
It's all grown, right? So I've been doing like bone colored plates. So I'll be sticking with kind of like an ivory for that.
Yeah, that's a good color. Have you been using any what do I got here? Like a gloss varnish for the glossy bits and a matte varnish for any of the, you can use, whichever, whatever.
I have. There's a few varnishes that I played with over the years. I have recently fallen very much in love with a bottle that's way too small, and I'm going to need to get more of. Is I like the polyurethane matte varnish that Vallejo makes. There's a polyurethane, like I like polyurethane primer and polyurethane varnish, because it's like yeah, well, it's like putting saran wrap around the paint job, so it seals it up real nice, and the varnish goes into the cracks naturally, because it wants to like almost vacuum seal in, so it gives you some room to make mistakes as you prime stuff.
That was a Will tip that I've carried on as well. There's definitely some bigger ones where I've airbrush prime and as much as we paint weekly, I haven't brought the airbrush out in a while, so I'm gonna do that for some of the big boys I have, because I bought my wife a Wadroon Apex Predator that I've yet to paint, and so I've got a whole Wadroon army over here that there's no reason this guy shouldn't be hitting the table soon, you know?
Right? Yeah, they just got a lot of love and some rules updates. There's for those who haven't played or are interested, they have a system called chanting that they're orcs riding dinosaurs, but they're also known for being like having very heightened senses. So they sing a song to boost themselves in battle, and as it hits a crescendo, or your chant goes up to a certain level, then you get powers. But it's cool in theory. In practice, it was just a lot of bookkeeping, and they've done a lot to try and make that less onerous. And I applaud their efforts. They keep doing that, and it's just a lovely thing.
Yeah, that's great. And then I guess we can give kind of a rundown. It's a one-on-one war game, right? Miniatures war game. So you play with an army of miniatures. They do have a smaller skirmish version called First Blood, right?
Yes.
With a handful of models. But this, you're having units. So it goes by a point system. So a unit might be just for whatever, like 100 points per unit, right? And then you might try to go up to we're going to play 1,000 points, or 1,500 points, or 1,800 points, or 2,000 is kind of that maximum. And you're playing on a traditional, what is that, a 4x6 table?
Correct. There's a 4x6 table.
So I know Games Workshop and Age of Sigmar, which we also play, and Warhammer and things, it's gone down, right? So it's like 44 by...
Yeah, it's 60 by 44. As kitchen tables got smaller, they wanted to change the size of their game to match.
Yeah. So just a heads up, you're going to play this, and you can size it down a little bit, but if you're at a full 2,000 points, you do need that larger table again, which most game stores do have that.
Yeah, it scales, but the measurements, that's one of the big things that the game is based. Like all games of this nature are balanced around movement, how far things can go, and you gotta having a smaller table just makes certain armies way too strong.
Right, they're already across the board in your face, and so it's alternating activation, and that's great. So there's cards basically that I should grab a stack of them if you have a stack of cards right there. Basically, you have a card for each one of your units, and then the units as they come out, the table is basically empty, and then you can have light units come out, then mediums, and there's a whole mechanic where you have to roll dice to see who can come out. But basically, you know who's going to be out on the table. You stack a deck. You kind of know what you're stacking, but it's blind to your opponent, and you have to pull or basically activate those units as you pull or flip those cards.
Yeah, you stack your deck in the order that you want your pieces to move, and there's a bit of a mini game and a balance that comes into that too, because certain factions have abilities based on what's your next card. It gets this buff or things like that. So it's a very cool mechanic. I liked it as like just described as a fog of war kind of thing that you have to deal with, but then it also like they blossomed it out and made some very interesting changes to it, and made some ways that different factions get to interact with the deck and other like of the basics of the game.
And as you can kind of see as well, it's a larger scale, right? So
yes.
This is, you can kind of see here how much larger this guy is than, your Age of Sigmar. So what is it? 38?
38 millimeter scale, I think it is. Yeah. And I've recently heard, and I'm not 100% on this, but it tracks that it was kind of accidental that the scale was so big. Like they, when they first did a run of the minis, that the people printed it out much larger than they intended. They had got the scale wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when they saw the scale of the miniatures, they fell in love. They're like, that looks great. Nobody else is doing that. Let's go. Let's do it. And they stuck with it. So it's kind of like a happy accident.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's kind of drew me in as well. And from the first iteration of some of the models, some early complaints where they weren't as defined as some Games Workshop and things like that, but they've really come leaps and bounds, I would say, especially with their resin models. You guys have seen this quite a few times, but this is one of their large Jotners, one of the giants, right? This is a sea Jotner here. But I mean, this is like cast in resin, just a beautiful model. So yeah, it's fun to push big things around the table.
One of the guys at Hoplite that I play most frequently, he has a bunch of giants like that with his City States army. They get
oh yeah,
closer to like Greek mythology style gods. They have like Hephaestus, they have the Hephaestian and Promethean. So big forge god, a big guy with a
Zeus looking guys, right?
Yeah, a big guy with a pitchfork and like he's on fire. And then he's got another guy called the Talos, which is kind of based off the Colossus. And he looks very neat, giant kind of cyborg thing. And they have another set of giants coming out, like the Promethean oracles. They look super cool.
And they're kind of cyborg-esque, right? So it's kind of like this Greek mythology mixed with some cyborg, type where they've got like, a robotic arm or leg or something like that.
Yeah, it's the quick, easy way to describe them would be like steampunk Sparta. That's
something
that a lot of people do. And it's a shame because the lore for them is really, really fun. I love the idea that the way their technology evolved. Is they and it got me a bit into a Wikipedia trap too. Is they used to believe that flammability was based off of a chemical that they believed was inherent in everything called phlogiston. Like the more phlogiston you had, the more flammable you were.
It's like the element ether,
Yeah, basically, yeah, and which is kind of like the idea of Greek fire, like napalm was 100% phlogiston. So they have a bunch of cyborgs that they had created because they just replaced people's blood with napalm and then powered up some machines that were attached to them.
Well, that is some steampunk.
Yeah, that is freaking hardcore. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of and the lore for it is really fun. The spires, I'll be talking about the lore for them like forever, as I enjoy it so much. But the spires, they're the elves. They ended up on this planet, the planet of Ea, before the humans were really born. The elves were fleeing their homeworld for a reason they won't share. They're not telling anybody why they were running away. And as maybe a fifth of them got through the door of the portal that got them to Ea, one guy turned around, closed the door, and locked it, said, "Nope, I'm the king." And then they just kind of took over the planet, and under this guy as the ruler, who was kind of a jerk in exile, who is now running the entire show.
Sounds like a huge dictator.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And known as the sovereign,
as he would be, right?
As he would be. But the spires are adept at life manipulation, like life magic. That's their whole thing. They get to play with magic in a way that nobody else can interfere with because it's just like stuff grows. Or they use pheromones. So we have a guy that we lovingly call the stink wizard. Things like that.
Makes everything so sexy, It's like
right.
Potion number 9 guy, right?
Yeah. Except none of his abilities are hugs. Every time I roll a die, it's for stabbing in this game. It'd be nice if they added that.
Yeah.
Romance.
It's quite a different game now that I'm playing. No, that's really cool. Yeah, they have some new armies as well. And the cool thing about the community is you can vote. So they usually have, is it top 2, top 3 kind of like potential armies that are coming out, and then people kind of, the community votes for it, and then that's the next army that rolls out. So it's a really interesting dynamic community. You kind of help grow the world.
Yeah, and they've tried a lot of different ways to get community involvement with the lore. They had tournaments where the results of those tournaments would affect the map, the actual canon map. Like, this particular faction through their force of arms, they were able to take over this area. But administratively, once the game started to actually get more popular, that became a lot more difficult to keep track of. They have other ideas too. There's one that I'm really in love with. I hope they can pull off. They want to make something called the Book of Deeds, where anybody who's been playing in a lot of conquest tournaments and a part of that community for a long time will get their name in the Book of Deeds that they're going to take to every event to share with everybody. So you can find your page in the Book of Deeds and Conquest.
Oh, that's fun.
And as you do more, like the page becomes more enhanced, more pretty. And I'm like, oh man, also a lofty goal. I hope they pull it off, because that just sounds super cool.
And the creators of this game are from Greece. So
correct.
What time is it in Greece right now? It is
I think they're 9 hours, or is it 6?
Ahead of us, right?
Yeah. 9 hours is Korea, so they're 6 hours off, if I remember right.
So yeah, they're sleepy right now. They're sleeping as midnight, roughly.
Yeah. I have talked to Stavros about coming on the show, and it would be like 3 a.m. for him right now.
Yeah, so we would have to do it at like a lunchtime. So we're still thinking about doing it, having them on. And the cool thing is they were at Gen Con. They were definitely at Adepticon. And it's cool to see like the actual creators and the people that are writing the game and all the rules and the lore and stuff like that, showing up.
Oh yeah. It made my day, because like at Adepticon, the guy who wrote the rules was there, and he's constantly been revising it, and he's been fantastic and very active with the community, which is something that you want with the game is at its core, and its most base identity is a very competitive game, and then you can make it a more narrative and fun experience on the side, but you need it has to have a good competitive skeleton for anything else to exist alongside that. And he's incredibly communicative, and he takes a lot of feedback from people, which is great. And the community is really good at that, at giving the feedback. But I also got to meet Stavros, who's the guy who built the lore and wrote the story, and it was his brainchild to start with. And I asked him on that at Adepticon, what's it like to see this baby of yours, like all these people playing the game that you made? And he you could see him just beaming with pride.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is the best thing ever. Yeah, brother, that's so super cool.
And this game, if you have wargaming experience, definitely makes it a little easier to jump into. But I would say, comparative to other war games that are like a straight up textbook, which we love that. Like if you're looking at a Warhammer book, it's a smaller book, but Warhammer books are just an older one, but it's ginormous. It's a textbook, but there's still a good amount of rules, but I'd say it's less rules somewhat. Or easy to get into, but it's a rank and flank. So that's like a little bit old world style. If you played old world before, so you have to do some wheeling around, and facing is important and things like that.
Yeah, it's the movement in this game is king. Like you hear that a lot about different war games, but absolutely is king in this game. Positioning is super important. And yeah, you play it with dice, but if you don't move properly, that's how the people who are exceptionally talented at it, that's how they can win consistently, is they know how to use those distances. And that's something that a lot of people were very fond of me telling them about, because you can do pre-measuring in this game, which a lot of games allow you to do too. But that's always important. You can judge those distances and get ready for that.
Well, yeah, if you're turned, on the side, and we can show some diagrams and things a little bit later. And if you get flanked, by somebody, they're either hitting harder or effectively not enough of your army is touching the other unit, or if it's a big model, something like that. So your blows aren't going to hit as hard, right? You're only going to be hitting with the first unit, and then each stand behind, because they're basically on stands, right?
Yes.
So each stand behind that would only be the first stand could hit with full whatever attacks. Maybe if there's 6, and then each stand behind supporting stand can only hit with like maybe 1 additional die. So that's really gonna hurt.
Yeah, and there's ways to mitigate that too. Like normally you have like these are cavalry stands, and any unit that you get, you're going to get 3 of them to start with, unless it's a monster, then you get 1 big thing. But if you like your infantry, if you like giant blocks of infantry, like a whole field of guys with pokey sticks, then you can stack them up like 3 by 3 by 3 and go like that. And because they have long pokey sticks, there's rules to allow them to poke past their friend's shoulders. So there's reasons to go big with your units if you like to have like a giant pile of infantry, or you can stay small with lots of cavalry or whatever.
And if you're watching the show, I would think that you probably like war games a little bit, because most of the models we paint, most miniature games are war game centric. But if not, it's like think of it like a giant game of chess, a little more strategic in movement and things like that. Which I got into board games that had miniatures, and I really love the art style of it and the movement of them. And then once I got into some of the war game stuff, it was, I don't know, scratched a different itch, and you can still play those board games with larger groups of people, but if it's just like you and one other person playing, these games tend to run longer, depending if you do like shorter points, like 1,000 to 1,200 points might be an hour, or something like that. 2,000 points might be an hour. It depends how fast you're playing, but an hour and a half to 3 hours. Right. This game actually plays a little quicker than your traditional, Games Workshop games. Which is kind of nice. So you can sometimes get 2 games in a night, where before you would only be getting 1. And so
yeah, it goes 10 rounds, but because of the I go, you go, it's kind of the same as in 40K or in Age of Sigmar, where you go 5, because both people's turns are encompassed in those 10 rounds. So,
and yeah, I mean, you'll be waiting in a Games Workshop game for 30 minutes or more sometimes for, your opponent, the other army, to take all of their activations. They're going through all their rounds of like the sequence of like their spells, for the hero phase, and then now they're doing their movement, and now they're doing their shooting, and now they're doing or whatever shooting movement. I'll just like all the different things that are happening, and then you get to go, and you're at that point, you're like, do you mind if I go get a drink? And you're like, do you mind if I go to the bathroom? And you're like,
yeah.
Especially early on, and so this isn't like that. I mean, basically the first 3-4 rounds go super quick, I'd say. Just getting bodies out there and like, okay, I'm moving here. Now you go. I'm moving here, and you're like, by really the second or third round, you almost have, I guess third round, you almost have most of your armies on the table, and you're starting to clash. That's what they call, getting into the thick of it. You're battling, right?
Yep. Yeah. That's another thing I really love, that turns 1 through 3 aren't really like that. That's what would be considered turn 0 in Age of Sigmar, where you're just deploying your army. This things come in phases. You got lights, mediums, and heavies that come in at different points in the game up until the halfway point. So it's a dynamic experience when you're setting up your armies and counter deploying. Like it's strategic, and to your point earlier about like the turn length, it's interactive the entire time. Like there's an always going back and forth, which I just love to death.
Yeah, it's there's not really a dull moment. So I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. An excellent counter under 20. But anyways, I primed these all up with the Vallejo primer here, kind of polyurethane style. And I brushed it on so it gets in all the little crevasses. Crevances. And we're just gonna let these guys dry. And like a smarty pants, I use this glove. So that's a lesson learned a long time ago. No reason to wash our hands 45 times. Use a glove. So let these guys dry over here, and then I'm going to move on, and I think we're going to slap chop these guys so they'll be quick. And I got some dry brushing. Then I'm going to slap chop some white paint on these, and these are those trolls. Where's our little troll box? This is the box of trolls. And a funny thing about the trolls in their lore, they're kind of a hybrid, right? They messed with the DNA of some of these Nord guys, and then lo and behold, they turn into these gross rat-eating little troll boys.
Yeah,
and girls. I don't want to,
right.
Troll people.
How the spires have ruined everything on this planet. They took the local flora and fauna and they messed around with it to try and make it work their purposes. And all the demi-humans that you get, the trolls, the werewolves, all that kind of stuff. Those are the guys in the north, and they were playing with them, and they just kind of like, well, we're done with them. We'll leave them there.
So here's one of the werewolves, and I need to put some. His leather bits are a little almost too shiny, a little matte on there, but they're kind of blue as well. So yeah,
that guy's looking great.
Fun. All
Those
right.
werewolves are super cool. I don't see them on the table as much as I see some of the other units for the Nords, but the rules have recently changed, so we'll see.
Yeah, they're very similar to the Uggers. Kind of like an ogre style guy, but they call them Uggers. UGR. I don't know where my dudes are. Where are you?
Ogres are nasty.
But yeah, they hit just as hard as 3 Ogres hit just as hard as like this guy, who's very cool, which I need to paint him up too, but he's my airbrush project.
Ooh.
The Mountain Jotner. And like pound for pound, those 3 dudes hit just as hard as this. And points wise, they're pretty comparable. But after you bought that thing, you're like, I gotta use them,
Right. Well, yeah, and that's another one of the Artisan series guys, isn't it?
Yeah. I had to get all 3,
Right.
Let's see if I can pull this one over too.
That's one thing for painters. It's a lovely game because they have realized that their real strength with their line is their big, beautiful models. So they want to give you a reason to put your centerpieces down, and a lot of them.
Yeah, those are cool. That guy's like kind of half painted. So I'm glad. The one thing about the old Path of the Brush, we have a new path every week, and so this is my main hobby night generally, and so I've neglected a few pet projects. So yeah,
you actually get to do the stuff you want to this time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
no, it's been a great
the guest that we had lined up today. They had a family thing that came up, right? So they were going to reschedule with us. So it'll be
yeah. She was going to be on it, and then but we wanted to make sure that family time comes first.
Yeah.
Before make sure you take care of your family before you take care of hobbies. Good lesson learned there. And we will have on December 4th Modifius on in April from that. But yeah, and then knowing that Rick was under the weather too, it was like, yeah, let's do that, and then it can be the Mark and Will show on a special B day.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Oh yeah.
That happened.
So yeah, what I'm doing now is I got a nondescript, basically a generic dry brush. Won't say where I purchased this from, but they actually are pretty decent. I've used everything from makeup brushes, old makeup brushes of my wife's that I just like trimmed down, to actual dry brushes, from, depending what kind they are, which work great. After a while, you just have to get a new one. They just kind of go bad. But basically, I'm going to put a little dollop of paint here. This is the top of, I've got a wet palette, and I'm just doing the underside of the lid. But yeah, just get some on the brush on the tip there, and I'm using some paper towel, just to kind of blot it until barely anything comes off. And I've got a little bit of paint here, so I can kind of see what that looks like. And then you're just gonna dry brush over the top, and let's see if I can get.
And you want to be careful with where you are in your process with this. And my recommendation for anybody who's painting miniatures, if you're wondering where to start, I always say do the messy parts first, and you work your way to the more fine details. That way, there's less of a mess to clean up as you're slowly refining it and like getting the focus a bit more narrow until the piece is done. And dry brushing is messy. You want to do that early if you can.
Yeah, you're going to be slapping it all over. And then you can kind of see I'm already getting some details here. And And I'm going slap choppy, and I'm not, I might use some contrast paints or some sort of speed paints or something in certain areas where you want to go really white on it. I kind of do a combination just because I've got a hodgepodge of paints that I want to use up. And so I'll glaze down or water down some of my regular paints and kind of use them as speed paints a little bit, just kind of build that up in the glaze. A little different. It doesn't get in the recesses quite the same. But yeah, this is what you're going to want to do is kind of get some of that on there, and you can go pretty quick. Once you kind of get the process down, go pretty quick to get these going. And they look cool, like as almost just like a wash where you can see the detail popping out and just get them on the table like this. And they look pretty cool, better than just being gray plastic or black prime or white prime or what do you have. So yeah, that's another technique I've kind of done is always black prime and then do this kind of slap chop. There's an actual name for it. And every time I say slap chop, some jerk on the web probably is like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Well, slap chop is kind of how it got rebranded to that once they came out with the contrast paints.
Yeah.
But it's I used to know the name for it. But it's fancy. It's a fancy name.
And there's the Zenithal Prime, which is different, which is like you basically, which I did for these guys here, and you do them black, and then you hit from the top where the light source would be down, and I did this kind of gray, kind of what you'd consider a Zenithal Prime underneath. So I'll kind of do a slap chop like that, and then still do kind of what I would consider a Zenithal Prime top, so heavier on the top down with some lighter, so kind of like that a little bit.
It's all in the name there too. From the zenith, it's like the sunlight. You're replicating the sunlight. I'm kind of at an impasse here, and if anybody in the chat can actually like chime in and give me a hand, I got the quivers for all of these the Avatara here. Like I got a gray spot. I'm not sure. Like I'm thinking leather or maybe a bone color. But I'm also thinking like a ruddy orange or burnt orange. So there's so many colors that could be, and I'm just not sure what I want to land on. I don't know if I want to do something that contrasts so hard that it makes it stand out harshly, but I'm at a loss. So if anybody has any recommendations, I would love to hear them.
All right, here we go. I think I'm done with this guy. Kind of top down Zenithal style combination slap chop. So underneath, still dark, but not crazy dark, but you can still see the recesses, and then this little area here, which would be kind of shadowed underneath this little beard braids, man. They're kind of like little Jamaican beard braids, So anyways, I feel good with that, and proceed. 11 more.
It looks like a totally different model.
It does look like totally different model.
One step, yeah.
It's like, this looks like garbage, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Hey, there's a process. I got to trust in it.
And it is very hobby, right? So all of these come on sprues. So, that was a learning curve for me early on. And the bow chosen, which I primed those guys earlier, right? You're getting a box. Oh, it's an unboxing. And Will, I think you actually won these at Gen Con. And you said, hey, I don't play this army, Mark. Would you like this army? And I said, yes. Now I'm in debt to Will forever. But they come on sprues like this, right? So you've got to have your proper clippers and trim them off, and then they got mold lines on them on the side, so you got to shave those off with an X-Acto knife or a mold line shaver, and then you glue them together with whatever kind of either plastic glue or super glue, and try not to glue your fingers together with the super glue, which I've had to cut my fingers apart with the X-Acto blade before. Don't recommend that.
That's why I recommend these files. Files.
Yeah.
They for clearing up the mold lines, I found nothing that's handier than files.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be slicing yourself up. So files are great, and but remember, don't file down that resin because you'll breathe in that toxic stuff. Right. And in 40 years, you'll be like, "Why did I do this? Why did I do those games?" Because now you have emphysema. And this health tip was brought to you by Bath of the Brush.
It was.
But yeah, no, that was one of the things. Put them all together, and then now here we are painting. And then you get to play it as well. So it's a long journey.
But it's so worth it to see your painted army on the table. That's a really rewarding thing. We had a guy before Rick moved Hoplite over to the new location when we were doing our slow grow league for Conquest.
Uh-huh.
There's a dude that came in and watched Jacob and I play a game. We were at like maybe 1,200 points. It wasn't very big, but he was like, "Oh, that looks super fun." I'm like, well, and we did a demo, or Jacob did a demo for him in the next week, and now he's there every Friday. I played him more than most.
This Matt?
Yeah, that's Matt.
That dirtbag. I've never met you in real life, Matt, but you beat me at that Conquest. the Grow League. I was so close, but I couldn't do the tournament for whatever reason. I couldn't remember why couldn't I go. Anyways, I lost because of that. Which
I think
means
there was a wedding on one weekend. Like you were in second place. You're so close.
I know. I would have won if I would have just won 2 games. So, but no, he deserved it. He went all in. He definitely put in the time. So no, Matt, I'm proud of you. That's awesome. And yeah, we will clash one of these days.
He actually just finished painting his Tantor
nice.
week. Yeah, the Tantor that he won from the Slow Grower League. We got to do another one of those. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. There's a few people that are interested in joining up with us. I gave somebody a demo last Friday.
Okay.
And 2 weeks ago, I was at a charity event called the Mid Mitten Gaming Con, and I was doing demos there. That was pretty great. I did. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Just hauling. All right, keep going.
But I did demos on the first day. I did a demo for one of the guys who helped host the event.
Where was that at?
That was in Mount Pleasant.
Oh, okay.
At a curiously enough, it was at like an elderly health center, but they rented out the cafeteria for it. And all the proceeds from it went to the children's hospital nearby. So it was.
Oh, that sounds like a great event.
Yeah, it was at a place hosted at a place for old people, and the charity was for children. So I was like, that's funny.
Full circle of life, and it turns out Totally Green is people. So right. take that for a grain of salt. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, I got to do demos with. There was a kid who the only person I did a demo with there last year.
He was back for more.
He was back for more. Yeah, the planning wasn't that great last year, but this year there was a little bit more notice that was set up, and he was over the moon when we played on Sunday last year. But this year he brought his brother and one of his friends, and and in my first game with them, I played with him, and then one of the friends came over on my side, and we doubled up. And they had so much fun. And then he came back a little bit later, and I did 3 more demos for him. He kept looking at my vast array of models, because I set aside 1,000 points for each side of demos. You don't want to do a giant army.
But yeah, that would take too long for people to learn and just move. And yeah,
that's a lesson I've learned. I've tried that a few times, and it's not a good idea. But he kept looking at my giant pile of units, and he's like, "I'm gonna play with that guy." I'm like, all right, well, let's make a list. What else do you want to use? And we did that like 4 times. He would have gone all night if we would have let him.
Oh, that's awesome. No, that's
last year I had some prize support that Parabellum had sent, and I gave him a whole set of clones for the Spires. And then this year, after we were done, I had, from a loose box thing that they had at Hoplite, I got 6 Avatara for a steal because it was all open box. And I gave the kid like $100 worth of models. Like, you love this too much, dude. Please come back.
That's one of those things that those events are great, because now he's going to be like a lifelong hobbyer. Boom, 3 down.
Nice.
No, that's awesome. I'm glad that you're really giving back to the community. So a true Vanguard. So not only your birthday, but a humanitarian.
What the heck?
So I heard an interesting quote yesterday that said, "Don't let," what was it?
Don't let
perfection get in the way of good. And so,
don't let the perfect get in the way of the good.
So I feel like as you're painting and you're on your path, whatever that might be, just get some paint on there. That's like the biggest thing. You can always fix some stuff later, and obviously you're going to learn technique, and like we've been doing it a while, so like we can speed through things and get stuff done pretty accurate. But yeah, just get it on there is like the first step,
Yeah, don't be afraid to just put some paint on it and see what happens.
Uh-huh.
I think it's kind of a brilliant thing that they do with wargaming, because every army has their grunts, right? They have some unit that you're probably going to need a lot of, and they're not that interesting. But
right.
You get a lot of them. So that's a great place to start. As awesome as the really cool leader models are, right? Like this guy or this one right here, you know, it's got a snake for a tail, right? And it's like, and its mouth is open. It's got crazy fangs and all that. Look at all those fun details to play with. But you should probably start with the little idiots, so you can figure out, you know, what you want to do and if you can do it. And then
color scheme looks good, accurate.
Yeah, practice your way up to the big guy, and you can use color schemes that make the army look unified, look like it's together.
Yeah, big pitfalls I did early on was like too much paint and not like watering it down a little bit. So I'm not really doing that right now, but so I'm just dry brushing. I usually I don't water it down because especially white, there's a lot of, it'll break the pigment in it. So it almost looks a little too dusty is one of the things. But basically, if you, and I know we got some experts at home as well, but if you're checking it out, you can almost like put it on your nail. I don't know if you can see it here, and to see the consistency, and that's your nail's easy to scrape paint off, things like that. So you can almost get it to a light glaze level or something like that, or thin it out enough. You don't want it maybe too watery if you're putting it on, but you just don't want it straight out of the bottle or straight out of the pot, because it's gonna gum up all the details, right? So a lot of these models have really neat the way they cast them now. They're like really fine, especially when you're looking at some of these Games Workshop ones. And this is like a super fine little model, right? It's a dainty little thing. So if you put too much paint on, you're going to lose half that definition, if not more. And then these guys are a little bigger, a little more forgiving, but still there's some really neat like filigree that's happening kind of on their little like chest piece armor and things like that. So yeah, don't go too heavy.
And if you are a novice and you're looking at pieces that are like that, don't be intimidated by all those little detailed areas either. That makes it easier than anything else. That's almost like cheating when they have those recesses that you can put the paint into. That the areas that take a bit more talent to sell are the large, broad, flat areas, like big pieces of fabric and whatnot. Make that look like it's actual fabric that's flapping and the light is hitting it properly. Is you've got to kind of paint the shading into it. And if you got broad areas, that often makes people want to put designs on it and then make the design look like it's moving. That takes a lot of practice, but this guy's got some armor with some grooves in it. I just put a wash on that and it looks awesome.
Groovy. Yeah, washing is definitely one of those cheats as well. So as you're just laying out a base color on it, your first color after you prime it, and if you do like a slab chopper zenithal, then you do your base color on it. A lot of people will just they'll either dip it or they'll use like a dark or a null oil, and it just like brings out that definition and all those recesses. And some people are done right there. Some people go back and they'll dry brush for highlights on certain areas. So just that lighter color, and they'll bring those edge highlights out on armor, and that helps. Or some people use a highlight brush and really get in there. So there's a couple different ways to do it as well, like tabletop ready versus competition ready. And I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle of that. Where early ones that I did were, let's see if I still have something over here to show. Like this troll, so he's kind of like a rock troll looking thing, was one of the first. It was a D&D rock troll thing. One of the first ones I did. It basically looks like I just put the base coat on it. I think I did a little wash. There's a little more detail in it from what it was, but it's just it's basic. It still looks better than just being gray. And you can see here, there's some little highlights on the face and different things like that, but it's still kind of basic. So, a good starting point. You're going to be so different in a year. I think, who was it? Squigmar. Have you ever seen that guy? He does airbrushing and professional painting now. He showed like from year one to the second year, and I think he quit his job this third year because that's all he was doing was painting so much.
Wow, living the dream.
He's living the dream.
Just throwing acrylic on plastic. Yeah, Duncan also, he always kept around his first miniatures. He said never paint over them. and don't throw them away, just to remind yourself of where you came from and where you are now.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah.
it's a good idea just to know, like, you have grown, you have, and you keep doing it. It's, yeah, I think of it like a lot of people treat golf, right? That
Oh, yeah.
you're only playing against yourself.
Where did
And
let me see. I remember. Let's grab.
for anybody who is doing metallics on a lot of stuff, I was recently by a friend. I was turned on to the brand that who is it? Scale 75. They do metal and alchemy. Um, Amazing. It's buttery smooth, and they get their pigments down smaller than anybody else. So it goes on so nice. Their metal, like their default gunmetal line has like 6 versions of gray. It's so good. They have lots of really good paints. I can't recommend them highly enough.
All right, here's one. This was an old D&D model that I literally just put this green paint on because we just wanted to get on the table. It's like a slate or a slot or something like that. And played with this for like a year and a half. Like, and it's, it's better than what we were playing with, which were electrical caps, like yellow and red based on threat level. Like the little larger electrical cap would be, XYZ or, and so we tossed some paint on there. And then, later that year I got into, painting these little skeleton guys and into washes and things. And it was like light years ahead. And then once I found better models, WizKid does great stuff. But once I got to some like little more detailed models, that just upped my game as well, because you can just do more with it. There's just more surface area to paint, more details to actually get into.
Yeah, more stuff to bring out. It's when the more challenging models they can almost paint themselves, but they also give you some room to express yourself as an artist too.
Express yourself. Yep.
Yeah.
So these guys are, like I said, filthy rat eaters. This guy's got a little rat in his hand, because they're
Awesome,
like
rat dude.
little cannons. So as many rat arms as I could find, because you can vary up how they're not quite monopose. You can vary up their arms and things like that. And their arms are actually, you're able to like move them, articulate them, not like a crazy amount, but enough to really make them kind of unique, and they give you like 3 of every weapon, and it's kind of nice.
And a tip for anybody who's looking at posing them, don't think of them as the individual, because they have to stand next to somebody on the stand. So if they all got their arms in a really weird pose and they start bumping up against each other, that can consider the formation and not just the guy.
Yeah, you want to do it as a whole stand of basically 4 dudes or dudettes.
Yes. And one of the early mistakes that I made, they had changed the rules early on. This has gone through a lot of revisions, and for anybody who's even good at rudimentary math can see why they might have made this choice. Is the stands that they have for infantry, like the trolls that Mark is painting. So you saw the brute stands and the cavalry stands are like this big, and they fit 1 dude. But then they have the infantry fits 4. And early on in the rules, every time one of these units like took damage, like these guys would just like take a number. You'd put a die next to them or whatever. But these stands with the infantry, they had 1 wound each. So every time they took a wound, you popped a guy off. And so that meant if you're using infantry stands or infantry units at all, everything they do is divisible by 4. And it's hard to balance a game around that. So in the first revision that they did, they changed it so the infantry was all or nothing. You lost all those guys, or the stand got to stay. So that you could have a stand of infantry that had 5 wounds, and it opened up a lot of design space. But what it also opened up was I don't need to pop the guys off the stands anymore. So we just started gluing them in. Wasn't the best idea. It's because they got to sit next to other stands, and there is no room to move anymore because they're all glued in. I kind of wish I magnetized like I originally thought I should.
Magnetized, still winning the game.
Yeah, listen to that voice.
How did I magnetize them too? Do I have any stanzas floating around here? Let me see. Yeah. Basically, I don't have the bits, but basically, They have magnetized stands you can purchase now. We got those neodymium. What are they called?
Neodymium.
Dymium
Neodymium.
magnets, the world's strongest earth magnets. But I got these little, what are they called? Like hit plates. They're basically like little metal plates. You can get like 1,000 of them for $10, and I glued those to the bottom of the actual. It's the larger base, but put the metal plate in there, and then the neodymium magnet here, so it would like magnetize on. Still not move around, but I could keep it magnetized to put on a magnet tray, something like that, to move them around, which worked out pretty good. But again, more hobby dollars spent.
Yeah, it will spiral out. But if you got to transport these guys, you would just have to see it to believe it. The multitude tricks that I've had to pull off to move all these armies. It gets a little bit silly. But magnetizing is definitely the easiest way to do it.
In the simplest term, hold on, I'm gonna grab something here.
Yeah, magnetizing is a good idea to move stuff around because foam will catch onto the spiky things
and break them off. Yeah. And you can just get some sort of like, they make beautiful cases, and I've purchased some, and Will, you've got many, but you could just purchase some, some sort of a click-in piece like this, glue, kind of like a sheet metal thing from Home Depot, and then when you magnetize it, you can go on there, and then bring them around in a duffel bag, something like that. But I mean, after you spend $30 a box on dudes, and then however much on paint, $4 a paint pot plus your paint brushes, and you get them all painted up and primed, you don't want their beautiful arms to break off, and it's an investment at that point. So you gotta baby them a little bit. But I mean, I've moved stuff in like bubble wrap before, just throw some bubble wrap in there, throw your guys there, and that's gonna work a lot of the time. And it's kind of a judgment-free zone. I was really intimidated by going to game stores, and certain game stores are more intimidating. It's just chances are you're cooler than the people in there, so don't even feel bad about it, except for Will. No, that's not true. Everybody's usually a pretty good community, but find the right one that's like-minded folks, and most people just want to play some games and move their models around and talk nerd things. Yeah. So, but I was afraid like I don't have the right stuff. My model's not painted up to a certain level, and if people are making you feel bad because your model's not painted to a certain level, like it's probably not the right game store for you.
Yeah, come play with us.
Yeah, come play with us. I mean, it's not a requirement. If you're playing in a tournament, sometimes it's required to be fully painted. But yeah, I mean, the most important part is to like glue the stuff together, get it on the table, because that's going to make you more excited to actually like paint and like continue painting that army.
Yes, and that's always like if anybody asks what's there, and you'll hear this answer in so many different places. What army should I pick up? It's always the one that appeals to you visually, the one that you will paint, because rules come and go, but paint is eternal.
Yeah, what's the coolest looking thing for you? Like, I liked all the monstery looking guys, and I saw that these are the first ones that have like the big, Jotners or monsters. And so I was like, okay, it's kind of a monster army. It hits pretty hard, pretty aggressive. I want that, And at the time I was growing a big beard, so I was like, that's what I need, And now that I don't have a beard, I got to shave all these little beards off these guys.
I got some files. You can use those. So how was, I don't think we had a chance to talk about it much. We're going to go back in time a little bit. How was your Halloween with the kid?
Oh, it was good. Get a little bit of water. It's dry business here, dry brushing. It's dry paint flying everywhere. Yeah, it was good. My daughter wanted to be a donut because for her second birthday, we got donuts instead of cake. And so she's got this whole thing where she'll sing happy birthday donut. And like, on the weekends, there's we've been to Mitten Ray's together. Our families have gone there. It's like a coffee shop. They got donuts and things like that. So on the weekends, we wake up and be like, "Ella, what do you want for breakfast?" And she go, "Donut." And they're like, "All right, we got to get you." So it's got to be a once a week type deal. but she'll take like one little bite usually, you know. But she loves donuts, so she wanted to be a donut. So we found a costume, just something on like a Ruby's, you know, on Amazon type thing. Um, it's like a stuffed glazed donut, you know, with like sprinkles on it, and she had these sprinkled bell bottoms that she wore on her birthday. So very cute. And then my wife and I got these T-shirts that said "The Donut Crew." They had a big donut on it. So we took her trick or treating, and she had a good time. We had to carry her around, you know, trick or treating before. She actually walked and carried the pumpkin bucket the whole time, and it was getting pretty full of candy. She didn't want to stop. It was like pitch black. I was like, "Do you want to keep going?" They're like, yeah, more. You know, just wanted to keep going. So had a good time there. What about the boys?
Oh, they had a good time. Griffin, he had made and I might have talked about it on stream, but he made a costume where he was a magician. He had a table that was tied
Oh yeah,
to him to his waist, and he was a magician with he had not quite a suit, but he tried. It was a little too cold, but he had a hat, and there was a box on there. And if people opened it up and put the candy in, he would say abracadabra, and he'd tap a little lever, a catch that he made on the side of the table, and then the candy would fall into the bag underneath the table and disappear.
oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
so, and that's having an interactive trick or treating experience made a lot of people's day. But he's gained what he really enjoyed about that was he's gained some notoriety in that neighborhood as the kid who keeps making these very interesting costumes.
Oh, that's great.
He was super excited about that. And my son Grant, the younger son, he went as a character that he and a bunch of other kids worked with me on a comic called The Psychotic Stop Sign.
Oh yeah,
And he went as the stop sign, which nobody else knew about really. But he was very happy when cars actually stopped for him because he was a stop sign.
yeah. It's a safety precaution as well.
Yeah.
No, that's great. No,
Yeah.
that's cool that they did all the cardboard, you know, making their costume and things like that.
Yeah. Last year, Griffin had made a refrigerator with a microwave on top, and he could pull a string so the microwave would open and people could put the candy inside the microwave while he was standing inside the refrigerator.
Oh, that's awesome.
And people thought that was great. And the year before that, he was a mailbox, a giant blue mailbox, and his head was coming out of the top, but he could open up the mail lid, and people could just put the candy inside of the mailbox. So it's always something with that kid.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like an engineer's mind, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. There was even a elderly lady that gave us candy early on in the evening. She's like, "He's an engineer, isn't he?" how'd you guess?
Yes, that's great. Nice.
He loves that stuff.
Did your wife listen as well?
Not this year. We didn't really have time,
Okay.
unfortunately. And I feel like I should grow my hair out again, but I got to time it so I can do John Wick for Halloween again.
Oh yeah.
I had to start like in June to get it just the right length for October. So maybe next year. But next year I might have too much gray in it to pull it off. I don't know.
You can always spray it with a little something.
Yeah, that's true. But
Here's
I'm
my banner, the Banner Man.
Oh, what a banner!
Yeah, so and the banner technically has like another piece to it, like this little canopy piece, and I thought I don't love that. I'm just gonna rip it off, and so it's kind of just more of like a shaman's stick, you know.
That's one thing that another thing that they do with the Conquest models is that the banners are so wildly different. You don't get they're dynamic. They have some really good action to them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're distinct. They really make a unit stand apart. And all of my guys with banners are in boxes in faraway places, so I can't demonstrate that right now.
Yeah, they all allows you to move further, or you know, gives you an extra attack, or you know, those type of things.
I do have an unassembled centaur guy. So the centaurs, and here's the box. And we'll show those guys. But yeah, like their banner looks like it's alive. It has a mouth and like maybe organs. I don't know. But That's the Spires for you in a nutshell. Like everything's homegrown.
There you go. Do you remember? No, we haven't talked about 80s cartoons. We've actually been really on topic for the bulk of the show, which I'm proud of here. But that Centaurs made me think of. Do you remember the Centurions? This cartoon back from the 80s.
Wasn't that they had like they were cars that did special?
No, that one was. What was that? Don't come to me. That's not that. This is like they had suits. They kind of looked like Iron Man a little bit, but they were like the Centurions. There's like a blue guy, red guy. You're thinking of Mask was the cars.
Yes, I'm thinking of Mask.
Mask is awesome. I actually still have some of that stuff. Like
Do you really?
Yeah, like the Knight Rider looking thing. You know, the black car. It kind of looked like Kit from Knight Rider, and it would shoot a orange disc out the front of it. And then I've got the 1957 Chevy one where it would you would turn it and then it would pop up. And it'd have like more tank looking wheels, and then you'd flip the top off, and it'd have like a machine gun turret. And then I still have the motorcycle. That was like my favorite cartoon, was this Mask stuff, and it was basically just to sell these toys. And it was a motorcycle that flipped into turned into a helicopter. I think that's all of the ones I had. I just had 3 of them.
That was Mask Force.
Yeah, that was awesome. They were like spies, if you will, and there was like.
Yeah, everybody always had a disguise. There's always a transformation of some kind.
Yeah.
Back then, that was a huge deal. I didn't realize they had like a 57 Chevy as one of those.
Yeah, that thing was cool.
Yeah, those things were awesome. And as always, like the semi was always super, super rad.
Yeah.
There's something like 80s kids, just we were inundated with the semis are the very best. You got Optimus Prime, the Mask guys.
Someone was saying the young Gen X or the senior millennials, that would remember some of this stuff, right?
Yeah. And there was a Big Trouble in Little China. And we saw somebody who had that semi on our way to Gen Con. They had the Pork Chop Express.
Yeah, it was on the door at Pork Chop Express. You can't make that stuff up. Which, yeah, if you've watched this feed before, John Carpenter is one of our favorite directors, and love all those movies.
Big fans. We should watch that at the next Gen Con for one of our movie nights.
Oh, that sounds like an awesome idea.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do some sort of interactive painting, streaming something while we're at the next Gen Con as well. Up the ante a little bit, but we had a good time. So definitely will be back.
No, I would love to do like sit at the booth and paint with folks or something, or if we did a paint and take, that'd be really fun too.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That's the whole point, right? We want to help you all paint, give you some time, a place to hang out and hobby.
I think I'm on my last troll, Slappy Choppy, which is nice. So, and these guys are cool. I didn't really talk about the models a whole lot, but they've got these trolls are some bad boys. Like on the back, you can see like some skulls. He's taking some skulls because he's a bit of a cannibal. He might eat you.
Well, they heal, so like their metabolism has got to be crazy.
They're
hungry all the time. I'm just going off the cuff here. I don't know. It doesn't say anything about that, but
yeah, make it up. Make up your own lore, right?
Right.
And that's the kind of fun of a narrative type thing. You can get more narrative, like, that's the one thing people sometimes shy away from war games a little bit, just because it's, generally not as narrative, and it's sometimes a little more crunchy than like a D&D campaign. And you're not really getting into the whole role playing and things like that. But not to say that people don't, so.
Oh, for sure.
These Nord guys, as you're laying down the hurt on someone else, you might, give like a battle cry or something like, as you like roll your, throw your dice or something. And it's kind of fun to see people getting into it a little bit.
Oh yeah. I think I told you about the dude at a Age of Sigmar tournament I was at, who had a QR code on the bottom of the leader for his Nurgle units. Like that guy, and if you scan the QR code, it took you to the website that had all of his exploits in it. So that's great. And then he asked, like, do you have a named character? So like whatever happens here can be added to the story. I'm like, yeah, dude. Win or lose, that's awesome. That's super cool. His own little kind of book of deeds that he was adding to.
Yeah, Mr. Deeds. All right, so we got 12 of these guys done.
Just gunning through them, man, making some quick progress.
And I already, I already magnetized these guys here. And you're behind your magnets, make sure they're flush. I don't know if you can see this, but they're technically not totally flush. So if they're sitting on a table by themselves, they've got a little of this wobble going on here. It looks kind of cool, and I'm doing this in my own little diorama. But when they're on the actual stands, it's not a big deal because they're really magnetized on there. But I wish I would have bought more flush magnets. So that's a good lesson learned as well.
I think those ones are 1 millimeter by 3 millimeters.
Yeah, because the bases are just a little bit shorter than some of your Games Workshop bases on the actual models. All right, so 12 guys slap chopped. I'll bring him closer. Da, 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 da. Will, can you solo me?
Yeah. 1 sec. And boom, soloed.
Look at the wiggle. It's a dance party. Dance party, dance party.
Now there's some verisimilitude. I had to use verisimilitude today, everybody.
10 points. 10 points on your birthday for using verisimilitude.
I like them big words.
And all those dudes just fell over. And then these are, these guys, the bow chosen. They might be dry, or I could slap
that. Kapow.
Kapow. Chapow.
And that illustrates the difference between the just the dry brushing.
Yeah, you can't really see what's going on right here until we actually do some dry brushing. So I think I'm going to. Yeah, it would be cool to just have them dry brushed as well. Do I just do some real lame stuff and just dry brush a bunch of stuff?
It's easy to talk and dry brush.
That's true. It's true. All right. These guys are dry enough that I can. So I might as well. And if you're in a process like this, assembly line, you got your Henry Ford going, your inner Henry Ford.
Whoa.
We're in here, so give props to the old Henry Ford. My dad actually worked for the Ford Motor Company for 43 years.
Wow.
He retired. Living the good life now.
My dad kind of did. He worked for a lot of the, we're in Michigan, so the big three, like the automakers, are a big deal around here.
Yeah, for sure.
But he was an environmental engineer. He would go to all the smokestacks for all the big companies and climb inside and scrape the walls and let them know like what kind of crap they're putting into the air. And this was back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
He also went to a bunch of gas stations and went to their fuel tanks and let them know what kind of stuff they're leaking into the tap water or whatever.
Good golly. That's wild.
Yeah. As a kid, he once saw his neighbor was a farmer, and he would play in the woods in between their houses. And one year his neighbor had sprayed DDT on all of the crops. And he noted that everything was dead after that happened. And so he went over to the neighbor's house and asked him, please don't do that again. You've killed the forest. And I think that kind of stuck with him.
Yeah.
His whole life. And also DDT is why he died. So
yikes.
Fun fact.
Yeah, it is it's one of those things, that we just have to be better humans,
Yeah. Lesson learned. Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That was not a neat way to go. Absolutely. But let's talk about painting things instead.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. So I did go.
That out. Pow. Incredibly different.
And then these guys here, I went a little heavy on because they're kind of dirty anyways, and they're quite a bit taller, right? They're these big guys here. But yeah, I mean, from this to this, you know, you
What
can
a
really start to
difference.
see
Yeah.
some definition. Uh, and even just like that, that looks really cool. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter. I did with the big fillers. But yeah.
You and
Now,
the family got stuff going on tomorrow night?
yeah, actually, there is our nanny is at a play called Urination. So it's exactly what it sounds like. But yeah, community theater at the Riverwalk. So we're gonna go check her out.
Sweet.
Should be a good spot.
I haven't been to Riverwalk in a long time. That's like walking distance community theater for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, affordable. And yeah, gives back to the community, and it's just you know, it's pretty neat. So yeah, this will be my second one of the year that I've gone
Okay.
to.
Nice. And we'll
But
be
yeah,
going to paint night over at Hoplite.
I know. I think next week I'm gonna actually try to bring my little girl and come on out. I got the green light because I started getting my daughter into painting. So after the show, I'll go. She'll come down and then she'll go, "What's that?" And I'll show her the model or whatever. She go, "I love paint," and so she'll want to paint too. And so we'll get some old paints out and like all these old D&D, unpainted models that have been hanging out for years. Um, I'll just let her like slap some paint on it. She really enjoys it. Um, so right before the show started, she actually came down and she was like helping me set up the area, and she was like, "Paint now!" She like wanted to paint like right now.
Oh,
And I was like, "Ah, we gotta hold off." Um, but she was upstairs painting with mom, so I gave her some paints and some models, and it was a good thing. So
how cool.
get them started young. Here's another really cool looking archer, and the hands kind of like just looks like launched an arrow, and the hand is just kind of like drawn back, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, nice and dynamic. No,
Yeah.
we've been to paint night quite a bit. There's a little dude there. We've talked about him before, but he's got to be like, he's maybe in preschool. He's got to be maybe 4 or 5.
Okay.
Little guy. But he's become one of my painting buddies. I always
Cool.
check up on him. So there's other little kids there too that you might be able to chat with. He's always excited about painting monsters that'll kill his dad for D&D.
Oh, nice.
His big thing. So that's his big motivator.
That's the one thing with Hoplite Games, and right here, Rick, just what he's done for the community. He talks about it, but about the activities that are happening. But he's really, that corridor used to have a hobby shop years ago called Ryder's Hobby Shop, and I think you remember that.
Oh yeah.
And I grew up in Howell Brighton area, and so we would drive up. A friend of mine, luckily, his dad was into models, and I can't remember what he was getting, but he would drive us up there, and we'd check it out. And I think I got like a plane or a helicopter or a tank or something, put it together, and it was just a really cool shop. But then there really was a vacuum of anything down that corridor, and now that like it's East Side neighborhood, right?
Yep.
That whole area is kind of blown up a little bit. There's a really cool coffee shop there. There's like new apartments, and yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of resurgence of all that. But what Hoplite's done is really brought the people, there wasn't anything to do except for there's bars around the area, right? Food and bars. And so, yeah, now kids of all ages can come and paint on Thursdays and game and learn new games. And they're, what is it? It's like 4,000 square foot of gaming space.
It's
right?
huge. Yeah, it's really, really big. It's very nice. And it's always active. Always something going on.
And it's the most centrally located game store within the Lansing area from downtown, but by the Capitol there. And I just say everybody's very accessible. Other game stores, they're great. I played at all of them in the area for the most part, but definitely the most accessible.
For sure.
Oh, look at this one here. It's got some sort of a crow on her shoulder there.
Oh, that's sweet. Is there only one with a bird, or do you got a lot with birds?
And that's the leader.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the leader.
The birds make them leaders.
So that's a night. And the neat thing about this game as well, back on the old game train, you can add aspects and like treasure troves and different added power ups or buffs, right? So if you have some leftover points, you're not quite to 2,000. You know, you can give an extra spell to somebody that can wield magic or a shield or something like that, or some sort of a more of a killy weapon. Especially for like the leaders.
Lots of customization for that. Yeah.
So the app. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of different ways that you can spend those points, and sometimes just making one particular unit that much better is better than getting more dudes.
I think what we're going to do as well on some future ones is like, Rick's got the top down. Usually we run out of space. We got like with the guests and everybody. But more top down cameras that we can do and solo some stuff out to really get into some of the tips because,
Yeah.
Our banter is fun and all, but I know a lot of people do want some hobby time to learn some stuff or just to see how, how we're
Show some more
progressing
techniques
on some of this stuff, right?
I agree. I think that'd be great for the times when family emergencies happen and the guests gotta be out.
Yeah, no, but I could I think this is a great way to spend your birthday, and I'm glad to be able to spend it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love. Well, I already love painting. I was going to paint anyways, so it's. I hope anybody out there is also painting with us on my birthday. That would cheer me up quite a bit.
Not Big Will's birthday.
Yeah. Thank you. Excited to that we'll get a game in. It's been a many moons since we were able to play anything.
I just switched over to the actual Gen Con. Yeah, it has been many moons. I'm getting an echo. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
All right. Sorry, I switched to actual Gen Con. See if anybody was watching today. It is interesting as you get in kind of we're almost in the midway point, right? Of like when Gen Con's hitting again, and there's a bit of a lull on some of the viewership because everybody's they're playing games, they're doing their things. And my favorite time of year is like right before Gen Con. Everybody ramps up, and people are just so excited they want to see what's happening. And so there'll be a lot of people will be watching, and you'll get up to into the thousands of viewers and things like that, which is kind of a cool thing. Who would have thought that people would actually want to see us paint? And a lot of people will catch us on the tail end as well. So thank you for watching, everybody. We do appreciate all the viewers.
For real. I never expected that the journey of my life would involve me meeting up with people who watched me paint on the internet and got to chat with me about it, which it's touching and humbling.
Yeah, Gen Con, Adepticon, yeah, meeting some folks that like, hey, I know you. And you're like, what?
What? What did I do?
A weird thing. So yeah, thank you, Peter Atkinson, for having us on, and Sarah and Marcus and Tanel and all the Gen Con folks are doing behind the scenes stuff here on Gen Con TV because there's all sorts of fun stuff happening from Sarah's Table to Blood on the Clock Tower to Akhiroki, right? Peter versus the Machine, and there's many more that I'm not saying right now.
I think you covered most of them, and you remember the shout outs, which I didn't. So good on you.
Oh, yeah.
Table Takes, Roll with Rem Alternus, Sarah's Table, Indie by Night.
Indie by Night, yeah, and Bonsai Baby.
Yes. Yeah. And Dress to Quest. Did we ever figure out a time to be on their show? Because that'd be a lot of fun.
No, we got to do that again. I mean, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So I feel like we'll have to harass them up, but that'd be fun as well. We are having Sarah on the 18th of December from Sarah's Table. There'll be a crossover, and then I think next we kind of switched up formats a little bit this year, which was fun. But we originally when we started, we had Rick interviewing someone from the industry, and then we would be kind of behind the scenes and pop out a little bit, and then we decided to change the formats and be more in the forefront and have the fun banter because we can talk about a lot of different things, about a lot of different stuff. And that was a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
And then this season, we brought back some guests. which has been a lot of fun as well. But you don't get as much like just silly hilarity, but you do get to learn about a lot of stuff. So thank you to all the guests that have come out.
Oh yeah,
Creature Caster we had, right? We had AJ from Final Girl.
And there was the Alpha Clash, not Alpha Clash. No, it was Alpha Clash. Alpha Strike is BattleTech. Alpha Clash was his game.
Yep.
And that was, oh my gosh, he had an awesome name.
Ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was wonderful. And just it's been great. So yeah, I'm curious what we'll kind of do next season as well. So
and with Modiphius coming, the models that they sent us, do we know about like what? Can we talk about that?
We should hold off on it, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be. I'll say it. It's going to be Mass Effect, and so we'll see what pops up from that. But yeah, some cool models were sent our way, so we'll get to paint those up.
Big fan, played them all. I got a lot of. I was happy to see them. That was super cool. And I had to take dibs on one of them. I'm glad I got to assemble them because Tally Zora is staying with me.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Slap a chopping. I gotta say, I got 3. Whew. I got 7 more of these guys to go, and I'm getting into the sludge of it, the grind of it. It's starting to feel like a bit of a grind at this point.
And once you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, though, you're almost there.
Yeah. No, I got it.
No, we're kind of over for our current run time. Wasn't Rick stopping us at 8:30?
We can go to 8:45 if we want, but yeah, we could stop now. Really, if you wanted to, it's totally up to you.
I'll keep going if that'll keep you dry brushing.
Yeah, let's finish dry brushing, and then we can wrap right after that. But yeah, there's we have the time. We have the time for it.
So did we have to do other shout outs too, which was basically
I think just Game Envy at this point, you know what I mean?
Right, and Hoplite.
Yep, Game Envy and Hoplite Games, of course. Yeah.
But we've been talking up Hoplite this whole time, so that's be
yeah.
We are sponsored by. Yes.
And then you got to remember we're doing some Conquest here, so definitely check out Conquest. We should pull up Conquest's little banner there.
Yeah, Parabellum Games.
Yeah.
Trying to remember their next thing. There's a bit of a community. I don't know. It's not uproar. There's an interesting bit of stuff happening because one of the factions known as the 100 Kingdoms, which is they're knights and men in armor and archers and whatnot. They're like what you think of when you think of like fantasy battles. Like the first thing they have a wizard or two, but they made a very big deal about how they would never add monster size units to that particular faction. But now they're adding a bunch of stuff to the 100 Kingdoms in January, and one of the things they're adding is a monster.
What?
Yeah, and I am all in for it. It looks awesome. It's super cool. Yeah, I wish I had a preview picture of it, but it's they're adding because they're doing sub factions like they do in many different war games. You get different sub factions to give your army that much more personal flair. And the 100 Kingdoms have like knights, and they have the remnants of the old empire, and they have the church, and the church was kind of underrepresented. If you wanted to be the church, you had one dude. I actually got one painted right here.
One feller.
No, just one guy. There's the priest, and the only unit that he could run around with would be militia because the church was not allowed to have a standing army. Well, that changed.
Interesting. I feel like in like a Games Workshop, like that is the church. You know what I mean? Like,
right? Yeah. Well, and that's the monster that they have is it's called an archangel, but that you're going to get a different idea of what their intent is with the archangel. It is a demolished church that is animated by Faith as a golem. So it's a giant,
Okay.
like it's a demolished church golem made out of angry zealot energy.
Interesting. Yeah, because they have all the dead, the Old Dominion, um, and they're basically like sarcophagi, right, and like
Yeah.
golem bone golems and like some really neat stuff. And they kind of almost looks like statuaries, but really spooky.
It's like a Byzantine Roman Empire, but all zombies, and they have some of the mythological bits too. Like there's minotaurs, but they're zombies. There's centaurs, but they're zombies. Um, yeah, they look really neat. Is it the winged hussars? I think that was
Yeah,
were they Turk? Well, the winged hussars. Yeah, they have centaurs that look like the winged hussars, and they're undead. And they look awesome. They're super cool. I almost picked that as my first army because the name Old Dominion, just like that, the name itself almost sold me on it.
now there's a country band called Old Dominion. No relation, but
There is?
I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
All right, this guy's pretty neat looking. He's got some sort of a animal skull, wolf skull kind of
Well, wearing it like a totem.
yeah, kind of a
Let me
mask.
solo that out, get a good look at him. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of a neat head, and he's got a little hood.
Yeah, that's not a small animal either.
No, it could be a bear skull or a
Bigger head than his.
or a giant wolf's, a warg skull probably. And this guy kind of almost has a God of War kind of vibe. I'll get one ready. Yeah, I'll get him brushed up here so you can kind of see. But
Let me solo that out too, as the technique happens. You can see the details right there, just as you don't have to have like a steady hand for dry brushing.
yeah, it's just kind of you're going to town on this thing, right? And you're just kind of laying the lack of paint on the brush. We'll just put it on the edges. The recesses will stay black, and then the more embossed areas of the model will take the paint. And so you don't want to be smearing it on. So you want it to be kind of almost stenciled on. I don't know if that's the best way to say it. You almost kind of like just stencil it on.
The paint needs to be tacky, but not wet, so moist. If anything, you want the brush to look at the pot of water, but not interact.
Right. All right, I got 3 more to go.
Almost there. And that'll be a crap load of progress for you.
Oh yeah. I mean, technically, I could just like throw a wash on these things, and they would look really cool until I got the paint out, But at that point, it's going to be pretty easy to get all your browns on there. I mean, a little bit of flesh tone on the faces, a lot of the bones, bone mask that they have. Put some bone color.
What washes do you find yourself using a lot?
Colors
that you prefer?
I usually spill them all over the joint.
Fair.
I'm a big fan of the Citadel color stuff. The Gnome oil. This is like empty. It's an empty pot here, but I really like this. I've used what is this? A Drakenhof Nightshade. It's like a blue wash, Citadel wash.
It's a nice dark blue.
Yeah, I've got a green one here. Yeah, Nuln oil. I'll probably do this Nuln oil. But there's like different colored ones as well that have just like a bit of a tint to it. There's a red one. I can't think of the color or know where it is, which I've definitely spilt it all over my floor at one point, but that's a no-no. Because it is more of an ink, like more of a stain, the oils, right? And kind of really gets deep into stuff. Like you get on your clothes and you're kind of bad shape, where the acrylics are easy to usually wash out.
Yeah.
Them soon enough. So yeah, I do like those quite a bit. I've used like strong tone before and dark tone, and like that stuff's good too, but it almost like leaves too heavy of a. You have to brush it on. It's true with any oil, really, or wash. Like brush it on, and then kind of almost take another brush to like sop up the pools. You don't want the pools to like because it'll just turn into like a black oil streak right across it, and it kind of defeats the purpose of just going in the recesses. But I like those because it has like a little tint to it, and if you use it sparingly, just like if you have a real detailed brush, and especially on the Hero large, you can just brush it into the little areas rather than slathering it on everything.
Yeah, you can if you get it nice and the brush nice and wet, you can kind of guide it into the recesses sometimes. But sometimes you just have to use a separate brush like a sponge to say if you overdo it, and that's fine.
Just get it
I've
going
done
there.
that quite a bit too.
All right.
Is there a color, any particular color? Like it seems like Nuln Oil is the big one. I've recently been using a lot of sepia tone.
Oh yeah, like the purple.
No, like brown.
The brown sepia. Okay.
Yeah, particularly on like an ivory color to make bone more pronounced. Sepia tone has been very, very nice for that, but you got to like water it down a bit. But it's another one of those colors that is just so generic that it's very, very useful. It's a nice little tool to have in the toolkit.
No, yeah, that's awesome. That's that finishing touch, right? And you don't want to do it on everything, because then it can muddy your colors down too. So if you have some really neat, most of the box colors are very sparingly if they use any washes. It's going to be on their metals or really the shadowed side of things, because it's going to muddy down any sort of vibrant colors you want. And, big thing too is like contrasting like the pant color with the shirt color. So like those two kind of stand off from each other when you're picking your color scheme. So you're not just like a brown blob, or a green blob. So yeah, and some of these too, they have like a lot of feathers. Like here's this guy here. He's another one with the skull, but kind of around his neckline. There's some feathers there, which will be neat to go back and over the a little bit of chainmail and leather, and then some like little white feathers that we can put on there. I think that's going to be kind of a fun thing to have them.
Do the feathers have texture built into them?
Yeah, there actually is some texture built into it. I don't know if you can see this right here, right around the neckline there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That makes it so much easier. I found that you can do that with bone color and sepia tone too, and that's a very convincing feather.
All right, it is 43. We've got about 2 minutes. 2 minutes to go, and I've got one guy left. Here we go.
You can do it.
Racing the clock is what I feel like I've been challenging myself to do.
I didn't have a challenge. My challenge was to become 48 years old. I think that was the whole
I know
thing.
you did good.
I did it. I did it, everybody. I am liking how these guys are coming along. I still don't know what I'm going to do these the quivers for their arrows, but I'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Just went with the metallics. I wanted to give them some kind of space metals. Like these guys get to play with alloys that are not native to this planet. So also matching their blue and purple fabrics. I went with blue and purple metals, and that's been kind of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, I think we're there. It's 44, so we're gonna have to say hello and goodbye.
Yeah,
Will, it's been a pleasure hanging out on your birthday.
Yeah, and thanks for hanging out with me and painting, and anybody else out there. Thanks for hanging out with us and painting with us.
I hope to see you on the flip side on demand, and so shout out to Hoplite Games and Game Envy, everybody at Gen Con TV, and our fans out there. We love you so much. And excited to see you next week. And on that note, I'm Mark.
I'm Will.
Holy cow. So we'll see you at your next local game store. Peace.